Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Adam. Welcome to another P3D video, and in this one I want to talk about airports. And I'm going to apologize straight away off the bat. This might be a bit of a long one, so apologies, but the aim of this video is to give the average P3D user the language and the basic understanding of how airports work in P3D. So you can either enhance, fix, or maybe even create an airport. And moving forward, this will probably be like my final tutorial for the foreseeable future. I think I've pretty much covered everything in P3D, and I just want to do more flights. So if there is something in the future that you do want to see, then let me know. Tutorials I can do on request, but I think from now on I've covered pretty much everything. Also, FYI, we're going to be using two tools in this video, Model Converter X and Airport Design Editor. So everything I say in this video can be utilized in some form, maybe slightly changed for FSX and P3D versions 1 to 6, although Airport Design Editor, as of recording this video, isn't compatible with V6. So no changes can be made to airports using that tool, I'm afraid. I'm personally in V5 at the moment, so I'll primarily be talking about V5. I'm somewhere in Russia, I have no idea where I am. But yeah, the aim of this video is to give you the basic language and knowledge that you need to be able to manipulate, fix, enhance, change, whatever, or just understand airports within P3D. Now, why am I doing this video? Well, I feel like P3D users are kind of almost being punished for still supporting P3D, and that being their sim of choice. We've had, like, since the days of FSX, we've had some fantastic airports, like really nice developers like FLIGHTSIM, Aerosoft, UK2000 even, like just loads of really good airport developers create some fantastic airports. And, you know, airports are like anything, you know, they evolve and change over time. So you could have an airport that's just been released and it be completely accurate, but then as the years go on in real life, that airport is going to change, evolve. Runways might be, you know, redone, terminals might be added. It's gonna change, but the sim one isn't, unless the developer updates it and changes it. And kind of sadly, since Microsoft has come out, there has been a lot of developers who have basically stated, yeah, we're not, you know, developing for P3D anymore. We've kind of like moved on to Microsoft only. And there's even some developers who have stated, yeah, you know, we've moved on, but we still will update our products. And there's been a few who even have said, yeah, we've moved on, we're not updating, and we're not even supporting our, you know, catalog of work. And that's really sad. So if you wish to fly online, if you wish to use FLIGHTSIM or IVAO, which they use real world kind of like, you know, simulation version, like charts and airport layouts. So if you wish to take part in events or fly online, you need to have the latest configured airports. And that's going to pose a problem if the airport developer refuses to update that airport in P3D. So I kind of feel like moving forward into the future, people might start having to update their own stuff, you know, if they continue to want to, you know, fly on FLIGHTSIM and IVAO or take part in online events. And that's the purpose of this video, is to give you that understanding, is to help you and do that. So we're going to go through what exactly how an airport is made, how it's created, and what it involves. And we'll go through the tools of ADE. So show you a few things. It's not going to be massively in depth, but it's going to give you a start. Okay. Lockheed Martin, in fact, I will say this though, like Lockheed Martin, with each new version of P3D, they actually do update the airport. They update the nav data and the ICAO codes for the airports. So V6 will be more up to date than V5. V5 came out in 2020, so it will be accurate as of that date of when it came out. Most likely probably using 2019 data as it came out in 2020, so it's being built in 2019. Same for V6 was being built or was released in 2023, therefore the data is probably accurate as of 2022. So obviously if you wish to stay in a particular version of P3D, then, you know, eventually over time your airports, your nav data is actually going to go out of date. And that's going to cause problems not only like internally, but also it's going to cause problems when using the simulator on online, you know, networks. So actually nav data can be updated. There is a website you can go to update the nav data for P3D versions 1 to 5. So if you are running an older version, you can update the nav data. But anyway, let's get to it. So basically, there are 3 types of airports in P3D. There is a default airport. In fact, there's like over 25,000 airports that ship with the default of P3D. All over the world, you have, you know, international, municipal, regional, all the way down to grass strips. There's over 25,000 of them. The second type of airports available are ones I call enhanced airports. So that basically means it is the default still, but loads of sim objects and buildings have been added to that default, fleshing it out, making it a little bit better. Maybe even, you know, birds have been added or people walking around. Mainly Orbex do these ones. Like I say, I call them enhanced airports. And then there is third-party replacement, completely replaced the default, which is what you're seeing now. This is a default airport. The only thing that I've done is reskin the building models. But other than that, this is a sort of standard default airport in the middle of Russia, wherever it is. In fact, pretty much everything is default that you're looking at. Texture replacement maybe, but it's pretty much default. But a third-party replacement will completely replace this, you know, making it a lot more realistic. So let's go through each version of the type of airports there are. So default. So looking at default, you know, it's not designed to be visually accurate. Default airports in P3D are designed for you to be able to fly in and out of them, you know, giving you the essential things you need. That is it. And to perform in a way that is actually, like, good. That's the only sort of... That's the reason why default airports look like this, is so they can perform well, you know, on the hardware, and they give you the essentials for takeoffs and landings, and that is it. It doesn't like need animations, it doesn't need accuracy, it just needs for you to be able to land on the runway, take off on the runway, and get to the stand or gates. And you know, if there is a gate, there is a jetway, they will be included. They are, the default jetways are included, you know. So that's basically default. Now, if you are looking at a enhanced airport, let's fly over to an enhanced airport. Now, if we head over to a Orbex enhanced airport, you know, it is still the default airport that loads in, but Orbex have added a few things. We can see some people down here moving around next to some cars. There's a tower here, an extra building with some vehicles parked. And that's about it at this particular. Oh, and a couple of static aircrafts, and that's about it at this particular one. Other enhanced airports will, obviously be different if it's a bigger airport, but you might even have birds flying around, sounds, or any other number of enhancements. When looking at an enhanced airport, and you'll find them in the True Earth packs, the region packs, and if you have the global airports installed, you'll have them in that as well. And all they do is enhance the default. In fact, they utilize the default and just expand on it. And then finally, the third type of airports or third-party airport, which is a total replacement of the default, as we are here in Princess Juliana Airport. The airport, would look a lot different if it was default. You wouldn't have the birds flying about. You probably wouldn't have the traffic to a degree. The buildings, it would be a lot different. Yeah, there is a massive difference between a third-party airport and a default airport. So let's go through each of the three different types of airports, and I'll talk about each one. So let's open up a default airport and let's have a look, shall we? You can find all the default airports in the root sim of the root folder of your sim. Sorry. In the scenery folder. You'll notice when you go in there that there are a lot of different folders. If we just take one at random, which is the numbered ones, go into the scenery, you'll find a load of APX BGLs. So these APX BGLs aren't exactly, massive in size, but they contain potentially hundreds of airports. If we open a random one up, you'll see what I mean. So when you open a stock airport file up, it will give you an airport listing, and you just basically select the one that you want. You can see that there are quite a lot here. So if we go to Boise Air Terminal and double click on that one, it will open up the airport for us. So altering, changing, or deleting these files is a massive no-no, because you're removing potentially about 30 to 50, maybe even 100 different airports in that region. And each of these numbers here pertains to a grid number. The whole world is kind of gridded off, and boxed over. And then you'll find, so we're in 202, which is this section. Look how many potential airports contain in that one box. It's literally West and Middle America fully, and a bit of Mexico. So yeah, you definitely don't want to be deleting those files. And this is what a default airport can look like. It's like, wow. I mean, it's overwhelming if anything. But like I said, the default airport is just designed to give you the basic of what you need in order to land and take off. So if we zoom in, we can sort of see, like, you'd start at the gates, and that's what it gives you. It gives you these jetways, okay, which are totally movable. If they're not lining up properly, you can just select it and move it, not a problem. Then you've got this parking stand here. All these green dots are parking stands. Again, it's totally movable if you want to reposition it, and the texture will move as well beneath it. And you've got these links here. These are basically the sort of taxi link that GSX will use for pushback, or the plane the sim will use for pushback. And that links to this sort of taxi line here. So we've got a plane coming in. Very nice. They're all linked here. So you've got your terminal building here. You've got your gates, your stands, your taxi links that lead all the way down to the runway. And this blue line here, the taxi link, is what all the AI aircraft and what GSX will utilize when when you see them sort of in the sim doing their thing, they go along these lines. They have no idea what texture, by the way, is underneath. So if you happen to see like a load of baggage carts, or fuel truck, or the follow me vehicle going through things, it could be that thing is not meant to be here, because it's just simply following this blue line, and that is it. So if it looks like it's going over grass rather than the taxiway, possibly then you've got a misalignment there within your airport, because again, it's just following the taxi line. And third-party taxi lines might be slightly different from default taxi lines, depending on when the airport was made. So this is your starting block. Again, that can be moved. If you wish to start loading at the airport further down, you can do that. It's not recommended to change a single thing within the default of the airport. In fact, this program won't even allow you to compile. Like, if you made a load of changes and tried to compile it, this airport would say, nope, sorry, it's a stock airport, we're not doing it. What you would need to do is basically create a BGL that mirrors this, and change the ICAO code to make it unique, and or not change it to something different, you'd change it to what this airport is, KBOI. But because where this file came from isn't KBOI, you then would have a unique, airport. So basically, this is the default. It gives you everything you need. All default airports will have a tower, which should be somewhere on here. It's a bit hard to spot, but it will be somewhere on here. They'll have an ATC tower. In this case, there's also windsocks. And it looks like a load of buildings, auto-generated buildings, generic buildings, auto-generated with the GYD code on it. So it looks like this airport does actually come with a load of built-in auto-gen. There's a load of helipads built in as well. And a pole there, and also the ILS system, which is here. This is basically your glide slope ILS. And there's a transmitter there. Hovering over, you can sort of see what the image will be for some of the library objects, but not all. Don't know what that is. A hazard gen pole, whatever. But yeah, basically that's it. So that's kind of like, what a default airport. Now this, I would say, is one of the very more complicated airports. So let's go through a third-party airport now and have a look at what is contained within their file structure and how they're put together. Third-party airports tend to be a little bit more complicated because they're being a lot more accurate visually. Apart from the scenery and the texture folder, which is all that's required to make an airport in P3D, you might find other folders like sound, sim objects, scripts, effects, and I mean, in this case, there's even a world folder, which isn't necessary at all, and I'll explain why in a second. They've also got AI ships rock in here, which aren't in the sim objects folder, which is interesting. I imagine there's scripts for these. Nope. They put them under effects. That's weird. This is a prime example. To be honest, a lot of airport developers of the past have made airports in a very particular way. The more complicated an airport is, like in terms of the more features are being added, the more possibility of a CTD, or like the higher chance of one. If you just have a scenery and a texture folder and the airport is everything within there and it's using default effects or default scripts, then you're less likely to have CTDs, and it might even perform better. There is a lot more that's possible though in a third-party airport. There's animations that is possible. You can swap out the default effects and replace them with customized ones of your own. Same with the AI which it looks like, I mean, this is an AI program I got running, but they've completely replaced all the boats. There's people here. There's animations of vehicles. There's birds flying. There's a dude on a motorbike. Like, this airport's very complicated. And it actually does perform nicely, and it does work well. So that's the like possibilities of what you can do. But let's have a look inside these folders. So like I said, scenery, texture, that's all you really need in order to be able to create a airport. Inside the texture folder, you'll find all the textures. All of these textures are then bound to the models that sit inside the scenery BGLs. So pretty much all of these are models. If we open up one at random in Model Converter X, you'll see what I mean. We have here a load of cargo hubs, buildings, and models. And all the textures from the texture folder are bound here. If you go to Material Editor, you can actually see all the textures that are used. And just by looking at these textures, I can tell no PBR assignment has been made on these for V5. In fact, they've got their own baked-in shadows for this. So at the end of the day, somebody could come along and basically create a PBR assignment for all these. Remove the baked-in shadows, because the sun will do that naturally by itself. Take these textures, and like, these are all 1K textures at the end of the day. You could upscale these using a program to 4K and then go in and add more detail to the texture, and all these would then load and look a lot better. That's one way you could update this yourself if you wanted to. I mean, they don't look too bad. At the end of the day, I'm not a scenery whore. I'm not like, oh, it's got to be, you know, 4K everywhere. It's got to be high resolution detail. As long as it performs good, I'm not that bothered about what the textures do look like. It is obviously nice to have like nice looking textures, but it ain't by no means an essential for my flying experience. But it's within this program. If you wanted to, you could actually, if you like, you know what, I'm not a big fan of these textures, we can swap this out with a higher quality version. All you have to do is rename, you know, once you've created the file, which pretty much mirrors the layout of this one, you then name it this and put it in the texture folder, and that would get bound instead of the original. Or you could just open up all the files in the list here of the Material Editor with a, you know, an enhancement program, and you could upscale all those to 4K, which would increase your VRAM, and it wouldn't add detail to the image unless you went in and altered it again, you know, added like sort of mold, or, you know, water drips, sort of graffiti on these buildings. You could, if you wanted to, add a bit of rust to the corners to make them look a bit more worn, like they've done here on this building. You pretty much do what you want, really. It's just to build up the detail, like define the edging here a bit more, so it maybe looks a bit more like rock rather than just a texture. But that's one way to enhance the textures of the models. But that's how the models load. So yeah, they all load from here. Now, another way, if you wanted to enhance your airport, let's say you look at this and go, ooh, I'm not a big fan of this texture. You know, get a texture from another developer that you are a fan of, you know, rename it to the name here in the DDS format and replace, you know, and then that will load instead. So if you go, do you know what, this grass looks a bit naff, or the edging on here looks a bit crap, or, you know, this asphalt here I'm not a big fan of, you can update and it will just change it. You know, I mean, I actually quite like these textures, so, but if I wanted to change them, you know, that's what I could do, and that's how I could do about it. But if you change the size of them, they will not show as they should inside the sim. So the way, like, these are 1K, or these are 2K now, These are 2K textures. If you put this to 4K, they will not show as they should. They will either be slightly bigger or slightly smaller, depending on, you know, whatever. But all these textures are totally replaceable or even updatable. Like, this looks too clean and neat. You know, if you weather it down a little bit within the texture, it will actually look a little bit better. And the same as if you upscaled it to 4K, of course performance will go down. Next is the scenery folder. Like I showed you those models. All of these BGLs are basically made off a system of coordinates. So like, you know, Google Earth effectively. You know, if we look at an airport randomly here, there is a coordinates here, longitude and latitude, which pinpoints this airport, in particular Saxatoon International. And if we actually copied that and clicked on another one and then put those coordinates here, it would take us to Saxatoon International Airport. Now the BGLs and the sim objects are done in exactly the same way. So if we load up the ICAO code for the airport, which will always have the ICAO of the airport and then an ADE identifier, you can load that up in Airport Design Editor, and we can have a look at under the hood of the third-party airport. And like I said, everything's done on a coordinate system. So if we go to airport properties, they are the coordinates for this airport. Now obviously you can't change the coordinates of this airport because this is where it sits. But it's in this menu that you could create a sloped airport if you wish. I'll put a link down below to the video of creating a sloped airport because I've already sort of shown that. But also if you wanted to set the altitude, I'll show you how you can do that. Now this particular airport has got exclusion files. So really in P3D, no default or stock airport does actually get removed. It just gets excluded from loading using these exclusion. Now if you want to see how to do that, again, I will link down below a video on how you create an exclusion for an airport if it hasn't, you know, happened in the sim when you load in. For now, I'm just going to delete these exclusions because it prevents us from actually, you know, having a look underneath, and it's a bit of an eyesore. So when you open a airport, first thing you want to do is go to lists and libraries used and check to see if there's any third-party assets that are being used but are not included within this setup. If there are, it will say unknown and it'll have a GUID number and then it'll like some random letters or numbers here, right? So first thing you need to do is close this, go to tools, go to library object manager, and then find the folder for the airport. Most of the time the libraries are included in the airport but not included in the index of the ICAO code. Add that folder, click save, and then when you come back to the libraries used, it will have words here identifying what they are, and you won't see any black box objects in your airport. If you save without doing that process, it will exclude those black box objects, meaning they won't load in this newly compiled, you know, version. Anytime you compile an airport, you're saving it as is. And I always recommend that if you ever do any alterations, is to create a copy of the airport and put it outside of this folder. That way, if you want to revert back to the original, you can. So some things we can do inside here, as you can see, just looking at the taxi links, there is no actual taxi assignment. Like here, the runway has been assigned. So if we right click and go to edit, it's got a asphalt assignment. If we wanted to change it to concrete, water, grass, whatever, we could here. It would then change the texture defaultly underneath, but also, unless there is another one assigned, but also it will change radically what it means in the sim for P3D on how it handles that surface. So as you can imagine, cement, concrete, they are rigid, there's no give. Asphalt actually has got give, and you can create a very easy sloped runway with asphalt. You can have tiny little imperfection bumps in the runway that will bob your plane, and you'll hear it in the sound or visually in the camera. You could have clay, snow. All of these have, I guess, different results for how the plane, you know, sits on that platform surface. So being accurate is really what you want to do here. If you wanted to lock out this file so people couldn't change anything, then you could tick that and it would be locked out. And that's pretty much, yeah. So just looking at this, you're going, well, where's all the taxiways that we saw in the default version? You know, how come it's just taxi links and there's no taxiway underneath? Well, one likely scenario is that in the texture folder there's going to be some photoreal probably. Yes, and it's this that they use as the texture for the sim. Now they've blackened out the taxi lines because they've also got ground detail files that will load on top to actually create that, you know, ground detail. But it's this file that gets used as the basis for the ground detail. And this file's only 1K in size, so there ain't much detail to be had here. Like, if you zoom in, it starts to fall apart and look a little bit naff. If this was 4K, you'd have a lot more details. If it was 8K, you would have a lot more details and resolution to play with. But this is basically how it's loading the ground up, and then it's adding these extra layers of detail to create the taxiway rather than defining it within this BGL here, which obviously is totally possible. As you can see here, these here are taxiways right here. If I can click on one, let me move it out of the way first. Yeah, so here, this is part of a taxiway. So, like, things that could be done here. Well, let's say if you load up and your jetway isn't perfectly aligned with the building, you can click on it and you can move it around. You can do the same with the parking way if you prefer. Maybe, you know, if you click on this, it rotates it. So you could align it a little bit better maybe if you're thinking, you know what, it's all a bit cramped here with the parking, so I'm just going to move some things around. I tend to find that where this dot is, though, for the jetway is kind of where it'll extend out to or a little bit beyond, so just be careful when you're moving things around. Everything on here is totally movable. You can pretty much do what you want, but obviously as you go around changing things, you know, it's not going to be on the taxiway anymore, is it? It's going to be a lot different. So just be careful with what you change, that it's accurate to the real world, because if you're on FLIGHTSIM, they want up-to-date configurations. If you wanted to change the runway as well, you could literally, maybe this runway actually has shifted this way. You could do that, or you could, you know, maybe its rotation is completely changed. You could do that, and then you could even edit this to give it a different, you know, treatment, and give it a different number assignment. Oh, we've changed to runway, you know, 25 now, so we can designate that, and maybe it's a left or a right or a center or a water, whatever. But now this becomes 25. It automatically changes the heading. We click OK, and now this is now the new one. But also, you do need to move your taxi links as well, because if the taxi links are in the old place, well, you're going to find yourself in a little bit of trouble with GSX when it's thinking the taxiway is still over here. So you literally just got to, you know, move everything over, which isn't too hard to do, to be honest. You know, you're just replicating the movement like this, and that one will go there, and then that one will go here. That one will go there, and then that one straight down to link onto that, and that one's go down here, Oh, we got a nice heart up there. That one to here. And then this one to here. And you'll have to do some jiggery pokery to make it connect back up again. But obviously we've moved it, so not designed for this. Something like that, basically. So that's bait, and then you do it for the other side, and that's how you would change all that. I'm not going to obviously save anything here because this would be an absolute mess when I went back in the sim. Other things you can do if you want to change maybe the nav aids, which this doesn't seem to have any. That's interesting. But if you wanted to, you could click on here and, you know, you can alter them in here as well. You should have an ILS. I'm sure there's an ILS. The end of the road. No, there isn't. There is no ILS at Juliana. Is that right, guys? Nah. There is an ILS, I'm sure, here. Is it visual only? Or whatever you call it. Like, RNAV only? There's no ILS system built within the AFCAD. Maybe that's been updated. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But so basically, the list here is the list of things that you can sort of change. There's no aprons listed. Communications. So if you wanted to change the frequency here, you just change it to whatever you want. Click save, and now it's changed to a different one. It would be the same with the nav aids if you needed to change that. Set an exclusion. A lot of the time, it depends on what's available. So if you wanted to change like the gate type, basically, you can also right click on the objects in question and go to edit, and it'll bring up the relevant menu. So here you could set whatever gate number, whatever type of gate here, the offset. You could even specify an airline if you wanted to, and do quite a lot, and set the heading. Even for pushback, is it going to be a left or right or both? Most of the time it's both. Another thing you can do as well is in the jetways here, you can set the complexity level for how it loads. So imaging complexity, set to sparse or very sparse, and then if it's set to normal, then the scenery slider needs to be at normal in order for these gates to appear. If they're set to, if it's set extremely dense, then the scenery and complexity slider needs to be set to extremely dense for them to load. This is basically a way for developers to kind of, fine-tune their airport for different setups. I don't know how necessary it is. Just set everything to very sparse because most people use a setting above very sparse. But at the end of the day, if you were wanting to look after your customers and say some people don't have great systems, they don't need to see the birds. Put them on a higher complexity level, but the things that they do need to see will be on a lower complexity level. And yeah, I mean, just set it all to very sparse at the end of the day. But if you wanted to reserve performance, then that's how you would do that, basically. I'm trying to think of things to show you here, but this I think I've chosen a very almost like a bad airport because it's not very complex, to be honest. But yeah, I've shown you enough on how to. So that's basically how you alter quite a lot of things. This is a very powerful tool. It's absolutely free, and when you're finished, you just click compile and save it, and you must save it at the same name as the original. So that there, overwrite that name when you go to compile and save it. You don't actually have to save within the menu, but compiling it, when you're compiling it, make sure it has the same name, because that is how the sim will read it versus picking up all these other things as well. Floodlights. Let's have a look at that. Oh, it's a placement file only. So there are no floodlights. Now, if you have any questions, I mean, I've gone through basically a default airport, a enhanced airport, and a third-party replacement. If you wanted to add items into this airport, you need to find out the coordinates of the location where you want to put it, and then create a BGL with textures, and then drop it into the folder that's relevant, and it will place it in the sim for you. Taking items from other airports is not a good idea, because they might have a placement within them already, and now suddenly you won't see it load in the sim because it's actually loading elsewhere. You know, if you want to create a BGL, you can actually do that with Airport Design Editor. With the proper placement, attach some models from the SDK kit, attach some textures from wherever, and build your own object to place in. And also, you can do it within the sim as well. The simulator comes built with something called what's it called? Sim Director. If we go to Tools, click on Sim Director, and yep. Now, use Sim Director with a default simulator. Do not use Sim Director with loads of add-ons or loads of items in your scenery library, because when you boot up Sim Director, right, it goes through your entire scenery library, and it starts to categorize or log all the assets associated with every layer in your scenery library, because it needs to know where everything, like, about everything. So it's kind of like updating the SDK kit almost, right? Can you imagine how many different objects that is? We're talking over hundreds of thousands. Basically, it's going to take so long it crashes Sim Director out. So if you want to use Sim Director, which, by the way, is a fantastic tool to place and enhance airports in by a drag and drop method, I recommend having a default simulator. The best way to create a default simulator is, if you have the space on your C drive, okay, go in to, you don't need to worry about the users. It's program data and Lockheed Martin, and put an X in front of this P3D V5. Okay, I won't do it because I'm in the sim. Then go to your where you've installed the sim, and here put an X in front of that. You also need to do it, if you want a totally default sim, in roaming, local, and your add-ons location as well, and put an X in front of that, basically disabling without deleting your simulator for V5. Once you've done that, you can basically open up the control panel. In fact, you know what, I will do it. I will show you. Let me kill my sim. First, kill the weather, and then kill the sim. Once chase plane shuts down, I will create a default simulator setup here. We need to shut that down, and every associated app is gone. Right, so first off, you go to your add-ons, put an X in front, and the files as well, put an X in front. Then you go to, get rid of the Orbex, go to where the sim is installed, which is here, put an X in front. That basically disables your simulator. Oh, it's still open. Something is still using it. Naughty, naughty boy. What is still using my simulator? Why am I talking like this? Nothing's running. Oh, Navigraph Simlink, you naughty, cheeky little thing, you. Try again. There you go. Right, so that's the program files. Then program data. Go into Lockheed Martin V5. Put an X in front of it, disabling your sim, but not removing or deleting anything. Ah, right. Again, only do this if you've got the space. V5, yep, we want to get rid of that one. And then we need to do it for roaming as well. And this basically are all the locations of the simulator. So that's it now. There isn't a location left on my drive. Now, let me go to program files where my sim is installed here. So V5, the SDK kit's here. We'll leave that. Now go to the control panel, the classic control panel. Got to uninstall a program and scroll down to the P's for P3D. And you want to do the client repair. Oops, I've clicked it twice by accident. It's going to run a repair, and it's basically going to reintroduce the simulator. It's going to go, oh, we haven't actually got your sim here. What's going on? And it'll basically put it back in. Once the client has been done, you do content, you do scenery, and you do the actual package of academic or professional or whatever it happens to be. You probably won't need to do that one because it'll probably just build it straight off the client, to be fair. Yeah, we'll do the scenery because the scenery hasn't loaded, so we'll do scenery next, repair. And once you've done this, you now have a testing version to use. You can actually load up a default complete version of P3D, no planes, no add-ons, and you can go and test things out. And then once you've finished, you delete those original folders, or you could actually uninstall if you wanted to, but I don't recommend doing that. Just delete the folders and then take the X off all of these folders, the 5 locations, and your sim is back to normal, working as it should. Anyway, that's about it, guys. I will quickly, maybe in the future do Sim Director, how to utilize it as a separate video, but I feel like I've given you enough on how you can fix errors within your airport, how you can update and enhance your airport, and basically a lot of the terminology for within airports, using those 2 programs to resolve issues. If you have issues, please in the comments below with this video let me know, and if there is enough to warrant a follow-up video, I will do it. But thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget, I give away €50 of Sim Market vouchers for Flight Sim every month. All you have to do with a chance to win is be a subscriber of this channel and comment in any of the P3D videos, and I shall see you flying in the virtual skies next time, guys. Take care. Bye bye.